I ended up judging an Adams. I got to go to Little Rock, and I met Dick Moran.
Oh, did you really?
And the whole arc,
I think I think I saw that on your Facebook.
It was great. I mean, all these people that I've worked with, Charlie's Corporal, they look different. I said, no, I knew they were old because we've been working together 25 years.
Yeah, they were old when I started working with them.
Yeah. So anyway, I actually am gonna probably work with them on a little project today. So
Yeah.
Kind of cool. But
Unless we get down here and start drinking.
I would be really surprised if everyone goes home without the drinking lamp being lit on access today.
Yeah.
This generally happens, especially.
Well, that's a holiday.
Yeah.
You know, on holidays at Associated, we start happy hour at 10 in the morning.
We usually do. We call it last call. Every
Mm-hmm.
Friday from 4 to 5, you have a drink and you tell what you did that week and what's going on.
Or what you're willing to tell.
Yeah. Actually, it's in many ways we're a remarkably dull group. We all work. If there's a value, we would like to think that we're cool, but we're just workers. We go in our cubicles and we crank out concepts and we crank out ads and we have fun.
I mean, hell, as long as your office looks cool, that's all you need.
Yeah. Tony has a thing hanging up there that I think makes sense. He says, we'll never put ping pong tables in because if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. You're on business one.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what to do, but considering you taught me it, that would seem kind of.
Well, I only have a couple of questions. You want me to talk to you or the camera? How are you going to edit it?
Just talk to me.
Okay.
We'll be good.
All right.
Do your best to answer in full sentences, of course, because my voice.
I have trouble with that. No.
I'll
Okay.
cue you. I'll cue you.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, we're rolling. Sure. How'd you get in advertising?
Well, one day in high school, the assistant principal called me in to the office and asked me if I'd be interested in a part-time job, and it was being a copywriter for the little radio station in Marion, Virginia, WOLD. And my job was to go in and write what was then called continuity for the local clients, the Piggly Wiggly, the Roses store, and so forth. And my first big project there was the Christmas institutionals. At Christmas time on the radio station, everybody took a canned ad, and we had books of them. And so the first thing I did was just go through those books and find an ad that I thought suited a grocery store with a name like Piggly Wiggly, and type their name into it. Now I didn't do well at that because I'm not a very good typist, but I did get an offer to go on to WMEV, which is still down in Marion. In fact, that's like one of the powerhouse country stations down there, and write copy and do an air shift over there. And Bart Frater, who is a legend in Roanoke, he's one of the only people from Roanoke ever to be a top DJ from Billboard. And I always told him he owed his career to me because he went to high school with me, and he went to WOLD when I went and left to WMEV. But the real answer to that question is I came to Roanoke in a recession, and I was doing some accounting jobs, which was really the best thing that ever happened because I never paid attention to accounting in college. It was just something I had to take. And I answered an ad in the Roanoke Times for a junior copywriter at Associated Advertising. And everybody had some help along the way. I think it helped me that I was kind of called out of the pack because the bookkeeper there was a girl I went to high school with. So I guess you might say a lot of my career started in high school.
Jim, you've got some crumbs or something.
Oh.
I'm sure you're showing up on camera.
Where are they?
You've got it.
Okay.
And that is generally to get into a question.
Sure. That's okay. I answered it anyway.
You did great. What do you like about it? What attracted you to advertising?
Well, I think the thing that really attracted me to advertising, it suited what I thought maybe my skill set was. I'm a pretty good writer. I was a pretty good writer back then. And I love things in the art. I like television and radio. And the advertising was something that gave me a chance to put all those things together. I don't think I'd ever be a person in front of the camera except today. And that gave me the opportunity to be part of all those industries. The other thing, as I came into the business and grew, was what a great thing that every day I went to work for a different company. You know, one day I come in and work on something for a bank, the next day a jewelry company. I'd be peddling hamburgers the next day. I learned so much about business and other companies' businesses, and to be able to combine creativity, help them progress in their business, and absorb all of this knowledge was just great fun for me. I really never could go in and sit down and do the same thing all day.
Great answer. What still excites you about the field? What has kept that? What continues to make you love it? What continues to you find challenges about it?
Because it changes. Back when I started, we used glue guns and rubber cement and had type set out in type houses, and today it's all electronic, and that's been great, and the whole character of the industry has changed. We were once focused totally in print and broadcast, and now we see some of that diminishing, and it's becoming electronic, and there are new markets. So it's just again, it's something new every day. It doesn't get boring. You get up one morning and go in and realize you've got to learn how to go out and talk to somebody about designing a website, and that's a challenge when you've never done it before. But that's what we do in advertising.
But is the same thing that has always been valuable? Is a good idea still a good idea, or is it different?
No, it starts with the idea. I've been very fortunate at Associated Advertising when I was coming up, to have some of the greatest teachers. Now there was a great faculty of advertising in Roanoke. Bill Houck Sr. and Howard Packett, and I'm going to leave somebody out, and I don't mean to. Claude Harrison, and at Associated it was Freddie Lee-Staffney and John Will Creasy and Julie McDowell and Charlie McDowell and Lee Garth, who was my first boss there. And I got a whole education in advertising. And I think that kind of continues today. Unless I lost track of where I was going with that. Help me out, Todd.
Is a good idea still a good idea? Is
Okay.
that still where advertising? Is that still where advertising starts, even though you're meeting?
Yeah. If I can give you a edit point into that, it would be that John, Will, and Julie, and Lee particularly seem to be able to get a project and just go in and pluck the heart of what needed to be done. Julie graphically, Lee in words, and just get right to the heart and come up with what's the idea of the campaign, and then again and translate within that, what's the idea to sell the campaign? What's the key selling point of the campaign? And then how does that translate into something that's different from what everybody else is doing? And that I think in our business, that's the heart of the matter. I've seen people, designers and advertising people fail just because they set out to do different things, and they lose track of the point of you have to sell the product, communicate the idea, and then do that in a different way.
All right. I was telling Charlie, I'm going to go to my grave. I just yesterday I found myself singing "Good Things Happen When We Get Together." I might take you a second to think about this. Tell me about a couple of local advertising campaigns you found particularly impactful or interesting, and you thought, "Wow, that happened right here," whether you were a part of them or not.
As I think back over all the campaigns over all the years and the Addy Award shows and so forth, it's hard to pick one out that says was rather impactful. So I guess I think more in the criteria of what are things I remember. And I guess one of them was the Colonial American opening of their new building, where they had singers and dancers on the roof and helicopter shots, and that was kind of that was kind of GWOW back then for guys who just sat in the office and did print ads. And I remember that jingle too. You know, colonial American, where banking's great ideas began. And you know, we were talking about Domini Bank. Core East, and before that, Domini Bank, and that brings to mind another very creative person who has worked for everybody in Roanoke, and that's Tommy Holcomb. You know, Tommy has written the soundtrack for the Roanoke Valley Advertising Federation, and God knows how many jingles he's written, and you know, he's still at it, and he does great.
You remember the spoof we did with Donna Dean and Mark Mulholland of South Pacific? That we wrote new words to South Pacific songs. I don't even remember why it was for an AdFed meeting. But we were over at Bill Thomas's doing that. I remember you brought a cooler in, as you often did.
I have a cooler out in the car now. The Advertising Federation, I think, has been very important in my life, and has been very important in the health of advertising in the Roanoke Valley and throughout the whole country, actually, because it gives a point of reference outside our little community. And I was involved in the AdFed on a state and a regional basis. And you get to meet a lot of different people. You get to see a lot of great creative work out of other areas. When Ad 2 came along, that was just a terrific deal for young people coming into the business. They got to meet some of the older guys that had been around for a while and get mentored. But probably the greatest thing for me were the AdFed regional meetings, particularly. We had really good local meetings, but they normally involved a party or two. And we hosted the 3rd District Advertising Federation at a meeting at Bernard's Landing. And we had kind of set up a Polynesian theme to the thing, and we had lined up for the opening event. We actually got with Donna Dean and Mark Mulholland, and Tommy Holcomb wrote some tracks, and we did a spoof on South Pacific, and it included songs like "Some Enchanted Addie," and we performed that, and we were going to do it in this island setting and take people over to the island on houseboats. Well, it rained like hell that day, so there were like 150 people packed into a room designed for 100. And but the show did go on, and I think that's still probably one of the most talked about things in the Advertising Federation. They're on the regional AdFed folks. I remember it so well.
I'm gonna trot a couple of names at you, and of course
Okay.
I'm gonna be on here. So start your sentence with John Wilkins.
I never liked that son of a bitch.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You can edit.
Yeah.
Julie McDowell.
Julie McDowell is one of the most talented graphic designers that I know of. I mean, she was the queen of logos, but you know, it went beyond that. She had her own style and her own technique, and but she always saw she would look at a client's project, and immediately she would, you know, let me start that over. Julie McDowell is one of the most creative graphic designers that I know of. She really excelled in logo design and corporate identities, but she was an equally great artist and a very skilled fine artist. She produced a lot of work and a lot of unusual things, and she was always after the something new and unusual and avant-garde. And she was able to take whatever the client was and find in her head a visual symbol that nobody else would think of, and she would research it in encyclopedias and newspapers and the history of the client to find out something in their history that she felt had defined their brand, and she was able to take that and translate it into a logo that when you saw it, you said, "Oh wow, yeah, that's it. That's this client." she's a very special person. We all miss her a whole lot. John Will Creasy was probably overall the most creative person that I've ever known. He taught me just about everything I know about the business, and I think you can single out lots and lots of people in the Roanoke Valley that were just tremendously creative. John Will just could do it all. He could do a special event. He could write. He was a very gifted fine artist. He founded the Virginia Watercolor Society along with Ernest Johnson. I forgot where I was going. I'm getting senile.
Oh, no, you're doing great. You were talking about John Will.
Yeah, what I was going to say was he was also a tremendous booster of the community. John Will was the father of Festival in the Park. That was all his idea. He persuaded Freddie Lee Orchestra to play at Festival 1. He was a prime mover with Mill Mountain Theater and what was in the Roanoke Museum of Fine Arts. And he worked exhaustively on the D-Day Memorial in terms of just raising money and getting it done. To creative concepts for them, and he was a tireless worker for the community. He was a very brilliant artist. He was a brilliant advertising man, and he just had the package. And he could build anything with some curtain hooks, and duct tape, and maybe some glitter curtain. Whether you wanted Cinderella's castle or a Gothic cathedral for an ad.
Freddie Lee.
Well, Freddie Lee Staffney was sometimes a lunatic and half crazy, but he was just Freddie Lee he was a great guy. He had a big heart. He was a very talented musician, and he was a terrific salesman. And he could explain things in terms that people could understand, rather than just feeding them a line. Even though it sounded like he was feeding them a line while he was doing it. Fred had some bluster about him, some showbiz, but with Fred we got to hang out with a lot of people like Johnny Olson and from the Today Show.
What was it like working on the old FNEB, later the Dominion account? That was a huge account, and you were talking about getting things on the bus. I mean, that's the kind of detail that I'd be interested in.
Okay.
What was it like? What was it like? How big were they, and how hard was it to work with an account like that in the 70s, 80s, around through there?
That was.
Can you start out with
yeah,
FNEB or get Dominion in or something? So.
Sure. When I came to work at Associated, FNEB, First National Exchange Bank, which later became Dominion Bank Shares, was our biggest account, and we were totally devoted to them first, always and foremost. Some days working on the account was drudgery because you were doing statement stuffers for checking accounts. Other days it was just wonderful because you had big budgets to do some great television commercials. But it was, working with the account day to day, that they were just folks. The Warner Dowhouse, all those people ran in and out of the agency all the time. Carol Jarrett, who probably went through more blue pencils on my copy than state office supply had at the time. I think they had to ship them in from, I don't know, San Antonio or somewhere. But they were a great bunch of people. They were very conservative, but it was a lot of hard work. They gave us the freedom to show our creativity, and we weren't afraid to use it.
Tell me about working with an account, I guess Joe Eames was the connection, an account in San Antonio before the days of the internet and email. What was that? What were the unique challenges? What was interesting about that? And how did you get that account in the first place?
Well, through our association with FNEB, we became friendly with a young guy who came into their marketing department as a management trainee, and his name was Joe Eames. And Joe went on to grow at Dominion, and he held several positions in marketing, and he went on to join First Virginia. And while he was at First Virginia, we wrote a speech for him that he gave to the American Bankers Association about ATMs. And he was very well sought after then, and took a cushy job in San Antonio and invited us to come down for the ride. As a matter of fact, that's about how I've always gotten all my accounts. It's kind of like, who do you know and who trusts you. But today, when I'm doing work for clients in various parts of the country, I've got internet and my cell phone. My office is in my pocket. I've done work from cruise ships. I was sitting in a hotel in Italy just in December, sending things back and forth on the internet. Back then, it wasn't quite that simple. Everything took time, and everybody still wanted it fast, but it still took time. We would do ads for FNEB, and we had to hit this Thursday deadline because we transported them on the bus. We went to physically send a runner down to the Greyhound bus with stacks and stacks of manila envelopes. And of course, all those were put together excruciatingly by typing the copy, Greeking the layout, sending it out to a type house. Today all that happens in about half an hour. That was about a 3 or 4 day process then. So to get an ad from fruition, get it approved, and get it on the bus was quite a challenge. Friday was bus day. Everybody dropped everything and went back to wrap ads. We were introduced to technology by Alamo Savings, which is the account where Joene's went, when they insisted that we get a fax machine. I'm not sure we'd ever seen a fax machine before, had little idea of what it was, but lots of banks used them for wire. That was a wire transfer mechanism of sending the paperwork by fax. So that's how we routed copy back and forth. I guess we were the first agency in Roanoke to actually enter the electronic and data transmission age. We just didn't know it at the time.
That's great. That's great. What's the funniest thing you ever saw, or what's the funniest thing you were ever part of in this crazy industry? Funniest, weirdest story that happened, the strangest thing, most horrifying thing. What story sticks out?
Thinking about the funniest or most horrifying or wildest, craziest thing that ever happened, and most of them were so wild, crazy, I'd be almost afraid to indict the other people involved with that. Let me think about that for a minute. Let's talk among ourselves. I'll tell you what they were. You know some of them.
I know some of them. Yeah.
You know Lindy and with John.
Jack Mason.
Well, but I can't think of his name. I tried. He was such an asshole. I had to put him out of my mind. Broke the spit sound barrier.
Yeah,
Chuck Yeager. And that we're out there. I'm in Texas and flying into St. Louis for this big meeting where Chuck Yeager is fronting for us, and a junior account executive at the time was kind of shepherding that in my absence while I was getting in, and I come in to get an answering machine message on my hotel phone from one of the clients who said, you need to talk to your account executive. She just threw up in a limousine on 4 Japanese guys who were manufacturing the products. That was pretty horrifying.
Oh, yeah, that would do it. Did you ever have a client that you almost got, but somehow something went wrong? A big client.
Yeah.
Well, I had one. I came that close before they did all the stuff with Keith Carradine to get yellow.
Yeah. Mm.
And it was a completely chance thing. They had a marketing manager who was she was the kind of woman that men would give up red meat just to have a smile. She was a very beautiful woman, and it's funny because I was at this party, and we said how we exchanged pleasantries, but all the other guys were just all over. And I'm married. I'm sort of already frumpy, and that was fine. We were
Frumpy.
And she called me, and she said, I remembered you because you were just nice.
Yeah.
And we had gotten well along. I'd sent her samples.
That's because you knew Rhonda would kill you if you'd hit on her.
Yeah.
you were in fear of your life.
Rhonda is the only one who's ever fallen for my moves, so I wouldn't leave it that. But I started sending her stuff, and she said, "This stuff is going out Roanoke, Virginia."
Yeah.
And she said, "This is great." So we're just about to get the contract and the stuff really moving. I'm ready to go up to New Jersey, and she has fallen out with her boss. He was probably hitting on her, who knows? And it never worked out, and everything was lost after that. But it was that could have moved us well along. I have no complaints with where we've gone, but that would have been a nice accelerator.
I wish I had a good juicy story to tell you about accounts we've almost gotten. And that's not because we were so successful. I guess we just, the people we went after. I can tell you though about accounts that we have won that nobody thought we ever would have.
That'd be great.
And one of those was First Federal Savings and Loan. Their account, they wanted to make some changes in their marketing department and their advertising, and they hired Frida Smith Carper to come in. Never met her before in my life, but years later I learned that before she ever sat down at the desk in her office, she knew exactly who she wanted her agency to be. And we had John Will Creasy, the founder of Associated, had a relationship with one of the guys over at First Federal, and they insisted that they come talk to us. And so Frida comes in all full of fluff and bluster, as young people in the business can do sometimes, very businesslike in her black suit. And I can say that because she's my best friend, and she'll only beat me up so hard. But she comes in and talks to John Will, and John Will calls me in, and we chat about it, and we go back and we put together probably one of the best campaigns that I've worked on. So the theme is first-class banking. And the subject was that the federal government had given savings and loans the power to act as banks, to have checking accounts and that kind of thing. And it just propelled their business ahead. But we won the account just on the strength of the creative alone, because she had already decided that somebody else would be who she'd be doing business with.
What do you think? What's the most gratifying thing for you in doing this business? What do you say? What do you say? Wow, I'm on my paycheck today.
The money and the easy access to alcohol. I guess the most gratifying thing in the business is simply I'm doing what I want to do. It's really not work. You aren't tied to a desk. You have more freedom in this industry than you have probably in any other. And not only do you have it, but it's encouraged, because that's what in my opinion sparks your creativity. When you start nailing people down, they don't continue to be very creative. But I guess that's it. I just love it, and I love the idea that I can actually help. Little old me can help some big company become successful. Sitting in a little office with a little laptop and coming up with what usually, hopefully, is a big idea. Not all the time, but every once in a while we have a big idea.
I always tell people what we do is magnificently exciting. Watching us go through the process to do it is one of the most tedious, boring things in the world. It is not exciting to watch people do advertising, but what happens because advertising is just fantastic.
When I first started in the business, I'd gone to work maybe 2 weeks, and I can't remember. It was some campaign I was working on, and it was getting due and due and doer. And I went home and told my wife, I said, I don't know if I can do this. I said, what if you run out of ideas? I mean, I'm not joking. This was really frightening. I said, what if I go in there and I can't get an idea. And the way to work on the next morning, the idea just came, not just a theme line, the whole thing, what it looked like, what it was going to say, everything just dropped down out of heaven into my head. I said, wow, I'm lucky. And I would hit those spots several other times, but it always happened again. So whenever I'm out looking for a big idea and can't find it, I just go get in the car and ride around, because that has to be the magic.
How is agencies different today than than they were, in the 70s and the 80s? I think there's a lot of things. Certainly the technology is, but I don't think the technology makes all that much difference. It's just changed timelines around. But the fact that used to there were more agencies than there are now that had a decent thing, because everybody had a bank, everybody had a car dealership, and most everybody had a hospital, because there were 5 or 6 of them here in Roanoke by themselves. And decentralization has been an interesting.
Well, the evolution of advertising in the Roanoke Valley since I first came to work in 1971, and we were like, I guess you would say, in Fat City. We had great accounts, great clients, big banks. We worked on the Advance Auto account for a while. They weren't as big as they are now, obviously. But we had all of these companies that were headquartered here in Roanoke. Roanoke was the medical financial center for Western Virginia, and we enjoyed that, and we had a lot of great advertising and made good money and employed a lot of people until about 1990, when we had a really crazy recession and savings and loans were going down. We were hit badly because we had so many banking clients. That had been one of our specialties. But along with that, just lots of other things happened. And there was, Associated closed, Houck closed, Harrison had merged with Houck prior to that. But there's just as companies in Roanoke were being bought and moved out and merged into other companies where we wouldn't have a chance in hell of ever getting their advertising account. That was a huge loss of potential business. And I think what happened is that is kind of the path that I followed, and other people have followed that are still working in the business. And that's we changed things from having this big agency that had media planners and buyers and and became more idea shops. Not that you still don't do the media planning and media buying, but there's more emphasis on the idea, and the technology allows you to take care of all that other stuff more easily than it did in the 70s. The computer planning software, media buying, all of that's all very different. But when you look around at the agencies and graphic shops, et cetera, that are successful in the Roanoke Valley today, you find the same thing that's bound the industry for so many years, and it's the idea, the ability to pluck it and put it in terms the client can understand, and then translating that to what the consumer can understand, and motivating somebody to take some action that they may not really want to take, or maybe didn't know they wanted to take. So it has been an evolution, but it's a good one. And where will it evolve in the future? One never knows what new technology is going to come. Maybe if Steve Jobs was still with us, he would have created within the next 20 years, would have created an idea generating device. I guess he would call it the idea.
One other guy I wanted to ask you about that you knew well, and a lot of people don't, Fred Freelance.
Yeah, Fred Freelance was absolutely a character. He was on stage every moment of his life. He started out as a DJ for WROV when it was the Rock of Roanoke, and the top 40 station in town. And he did more outrageous things. I will tell you a story about Fred that the Addies. Production of the Addie show is always a big deal, and I've been able to work on quite a few of those, and we did one. I worked with Fred and Claire Maddox on producing the show, and we were showing some slides, and Fred was doing a monologue of kind of off-color, cantankerous comments about, which advertising person might be in that situation. It's hard to explain without AV of support, but for the rehearsal, we slipped in some pretty naughty, derogatory remarks about some prominent people in the business and in Roanoke. And even though we took the slides out that accompanied that, Fred just ignored the concept he wasn't supposed to use those at the actual show. There was a very, very well-known female realtor in Roanoke that was mortally defamed at that meeting.
Why do you think a place like Roanoke is so much better off by having an engaged group of creative thinkers and doers when you are in advertising? The John Wills, the Howard Packers, people like that.
If you look at what goes on across the country, I think you'll find that any community, it's a creative force that drives the community. Industry, business, etc., provides the paychecks, but the thinkers, the doers, the people that think outside the box, and here in Roanoke say, what can Roanoke do to be better? What can we do to attract more people? You don't do it just by buying, building buildings. You have to have the idea and the concept of how to do that. And if you look around, you'll see it's always the creative people that are somehow involved in those community organizations or the Chamber of Commerce or downtown Roanoke that are sparking all of those ideas that the management types grab onto, thankfully, and bring to fruition. I just don't see a chance for a town to survive without a creative core, and that's everything from theater, the arts, and just concepts in entertainment, and thinking about outdoor recreation, which is a big concept for Roanoke right now, but it has to be sold in a creative way, and you can't just sit there and say we've got some rivers and we've got some rocks and you can go climb. It takes that creative spark to translate any of that into an opportunity to sustain the community.
That's great. We hit you with one more, and then we'll call
Okay.
it. You've done wonderfully. One of the issues we have is there are some very brilliant people who happen to be in their late 80s, and they don't speak with the energy that you speak with.
I'm getting closer.
With any luck,
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Yeah.
I always said if I make it to 95, I'm going to start smoking cigarettes again. But anyway,
You don't want to do that.
What made the Roanoke advertising community, I may have one other question for you.
Yeah.
What made the Roanoke advertising community special?
I think that the special thing about the Roanoke advertising communities was that it's a small enough community where everybody knew everybody else. And we've all been to New York and gone in the sweatshops where you see 200 people on one floor with no petitions between them slaving at a PR agency. I knew Howard Packard, I knew Bill Houck, I knew all those people. We interfaced, and the pivotal point for all that was the ad fed. That's where people met and met on a social basis and got to know each other, and you're then able to pick up the phone and give them a call. I think those two things is the size of the community and the fact that we had the Advertising Federation as a hub for everybody to get together is the thing that made us all close. We have all met people who are lasting friends. We may have been competitors, but we were lasting friends. One of those people is Larry Bly. We have always had a chuckling of being about trying to steal each other's business. I've even stooped to going out so he would find me and going in and be sitting rifling through his desk when he comes in. So but that's the kind of relationships you can build in a smaller community and have some fun. As they say, if you're not having fun, quit.
One of you alluded to the New York thing. One of the things that people always say is, well, you can't really tell if you made it until you worked in New York, But what do you think of the talent level that we've had here? I can't imagine some of them better. Anybody better than some of the people I've known with.
I think that the talent level in Roanoke as compared to New York is actually greater in terms of a percentage of the population. If you have 4,000 people working in advertising in New York, and 100 of them are top quality creative people, here in Roanoke you may have 100 people working in advertising, and probably 50, 60 of them are top flight creative people. It's just been amazing that what level of creativity can be attracted here. When I first started in the business, I was not going to be in Roanoke long. I was going to be in New York or Chicago or Atlanta, and of course I found quickly that was dependent on finding a job in New York or Chicago or Atlanta, and that never happened. So I kind of stayed here and grew with it. But like I said, having had the chance to go up and meet some of the folks in New York that we've had a PR company that we've been working with up there on an account or something, I would look at it and say, I don't want to work this way. I don't want to be that way, because it literally, this was in 1985, 1990. It really looked like, in my head, a shot out of a 1920s of what a stenography pool might be. And I talked to one guy, this was revealing, that in the break room, having a cup of coffee, and he wandered in. I said, what do you do? Well, I'm a copywriter. Oh, I'm a copywriter too. And he said, and I said, well, what do you work on? Thinking what accounts? And he says, I work on Coke. I said, that's great. Is that all you work on? And he said, yeah, I'm solely assigned to the account. And I said, well, tell me some of the things you've written. He said, well, I write billboards. And I'm thinking, how many concepts are there for a billboard? Can of Coke, Coke is it, real thing. Here's a very creative guy that has just gotten a job mowing lawns.
Yeah, you were saying that I think I heard you tell me that story one time before. You said his main job was to plot McDonald's and put Coke is it with a Big Mac 2 blocks and take a left or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Would you like for me to say that?
Yeah, I'd love for you to say that.
Okay. Basically, it's what this guy's job seemed like to me, that he spent all day trying to figure out how to turn the damn air conditioner off.
It's the water cooler.
Oh.
We can't figure out how the air conditioner we got down, but the water cooler we have.
And that was my best delivery of the day.
No, this has been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite things, Bob Kinsey was talking about installing the star and how they've done that. He said, I hate to think how big the permit would have to be to get that.
The EPA permit would be the most difficult thing.
Yeah. Let's see here. Trying to get a few different looks. All right. I'll keep me out of Dutch with Juliet. It's when you have a good intern, you actually hire them to be your boss.
Yeah, no.
Keep you on track of where you need to be and whatnot. Okay, just finish up that story about the direction.
Yeah. So we talk about this concept of he's just working on the one account and writing one media, which really doesn't have much room for a lot of words on it. And I'm thinking, well, does he look at the Coke, bottle of Coke and the McDonald's logo and write turn left at light? I guess somebody has to write that, but that firmly entrenched in my head that I'd made the right idea to stay in Roanoke, where I got to try to come up with big ideas for big accounts and do a little bit of everything.